Hello, everybody, to my Startup Roadshow. This is the, podcast series where I interview investors on why they invested in my startup. I'm here with Kris Patel, who has turned into really one of my best friends. Met him over the internet. We bonded over Palantir. We started an entire Palantir podcast together. And we got to really know each other and got to know each other pretty well. About 4 months ago, I told him I had a startup. He was interested in what the startup was. I pitched it to him. And within 5 minutes of the pitch, I remember, I still have the video, Kris. I'll show it to you one day, where he's like, all right, boom, I want to invest. And it was just a really, really cool experience for someone to be that certain and have that belief in me. So I guess I want to take this time to kind of ask the question, why did you within those 5-6 minutes kind of get what I was trying to say and ultimately decide to invest?
So one of the reasons why is because I actually understood what this platform was capable of and what the market that it was going to be tailored toward. So one of the things that's about me is that I travel very frequently, right? And I fly all the time. I travel between cities a lot. So what happens is sometimes I'm limited by the amount of bandwidth that I have, whether that be on a plane, whether that be in certain areas where there's still not the greatest internet connectivity. So one of the things that I love doing is listening to different audio podcasts, different content that a lot of creators are creating. But at the same time, I'm hobbled by lack of network connections, right? Or a really low bandwidth connection. And I also found out that, I don't normally watch a lot of the content. I only listen to it. So that was one of the earlier things that really got me interested. And then on top of it, the whole pitch on content discovery, because I'm also a content creator, I realized that, there wasn't too many people catering towards an audio only content creator platform. And so when I married the two together, I realized that there actually could be some business value in it. A good example of a company that what I would say that's very similar in that regard is something like Substack. So a lot of people would not have considered Substack to be a product that everyone would want, but it caters to people who don't want to have to create their own website or create an entire blog just to post small bits of content. So one of the great things is that Substack ended up becoming a great platform for publishing ideas and putting content delivery in the hands of the users, where now you can just search and find that specific content that you're looking for. And creators had a way to actually utilize a platform to do it in a very easy and seamless process. So when I look at AUDEA and the concept behind it, I see that it does fulfill a lot of the gaps that currently exist between large streaming services that typically focus on large content creators like the Joe Rogans and the Andrew Schultz of the world, where it almost somewhat ignores some of the medium and smaller content creators who are looking for discovery, who don't necessarily want to actually invest in tons of video editing and video equipment, that just want to do small content via an audio platform, which can be done on pretty much anything, your phone, a decent mic. So I think there is a lot of value that comes from a platform like this that actually can fill in a gap that a lot of the big names are not looking at currently.
Yeah, I the only reason you and I are have any sort of relevancy on the internet is because YouTube and Twitter have algorithms, because they've centralized content to be able to get us discovered for certain things that we talk about, particularly Palantir stock. And as a result of that, we've developed a following of people that actually kind of care about us because we've been able to put out informational bits of content around this company. And then they've stayed for our thoughts on other stuff. But the core thesis was, imagine if YouTube and Twitter didn't exist and we went audio only because we just didn't want to do the visual stuff. And we posted all of our Palantir content. It would be very difficult for me to imagine an audio platform curating the way that the video platforms have done in order to get us the thousands of people that care about us. And my question was why, right? Because it doesn't seem like it makes sense for someone who listens to so much audio, for all the audio exponential growth of content that's happening. It doesn't seem like there should be an archaic method of distribution and discovery, yet it exists. And when 2 + 2 = 4 for me, when that light bulb moment went off a year and a half ago, I was like, this is a gap. This is an actual gap in the marketplace. I don't know if I can successfully solve it, but I think there's a chance because the problem does exist. Now it's just a question of if we can build a solution.
I would ask anyone right now, whether you're a person who does long haul driving, commuting, how do you consume content? What do you do? Do you go to YouTube and put it on your phone? And at the same time, I've done long drives. I've seen portions where there have been miles and miles where my YouTube cuts out, because guess what? there's very little signal. Whereas AUDEA, you can actually do it in a very low bandwidth way, get an entire episode very quickly, right? So those kinds of features I think are going to lend very well to it. And also having the ability to do search will actually optimize what you're looking for. The other thing is a lot of people, whether they're at work, whether they're doing other things at home that require very little visual, that require visual acuity, but actually have their ears free because they're always listening to things. This would be great for them. Also, I was actually listening to a Facebook keynote not too long ago, and I realized that while people are going to be in the metaverse, in the VR space, they're going to be wanting to consume audio content while still doing things in the metaverse, whether that be playing a video game, whether that be, doing some other task, or even things like meditating, right? You want to have audio coming in. So how do you do that? Well, you need a platform that has audio only that also lets you do discovery. So I would say this will cater really well to people who, especially to gamers who want to listen to something while also, playing a game that requires your visual attention, but doesn't require your audio attention as much.
I want to ask you real quick about, based on piggybacking up what you said around discovery. So the major podcasting platforms have used what we call in the audio industry, these decentralized RSS feeds to source content. So Lex Friedman's podcast is available everywhere. And the problem is, he's Lex Friedman and he's available everywhere. That's great. For the average podcaster, and I've talked to 1,600 of them over the past 2 years, which is why I really have conviction in the validation of the demand from the supply side for this platform, is if you're Joe Schmo talking about intermittent fasting and you publish it and you're on Google, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, blah, 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 you're all over them. But none of those platforms are doing the only thing that matters, like the multi-billion-dollar question, which is using AI and machine learning and deep learning and neural networks to figure out how to take your intermittent fasting content and put it in front of someone that cares about that. Then those platforms are irrelevant. And then you could be everywhere, but essentially you're nowhere if no one's really discovering you. We're not using RSS feeds. We've done a much more difficult route, which is saying, hey, we're not taking Lex Friedman's content, even though we could, it's on the open source RSS feeds. We're going to force him one day, or someone like him, to upload to us, just like he does to YouTube. Why? Because then we get the proprietary data, we have the keyword search, we have the ability to effectively recommend, and we get to build an actual organic recommendation engine from scratch. It's a harder thing to do, but if we pull it off, the benefits are just absolutely tremendous. So can you talk a little bit to RSS feeds versus like sort of centralizing the content and organizing it in one place?
Yeah, I think you just hit it on the head with figuring out how to incorporate keywords via algorithms into the ability to search. Like right now, when you try to listen to Lex Friedman interviewing a guest, you're pretty much just searching for either Lex Friedman or the guest's name and also Lex Friedman at the same time. But sometimes you don't want to hear the entire podcast, right? You want to have it bits and pieces of certain episodes that have certain key phrases in there or certain topics that they're covering. The current platform right now doesn't let you do that. Like literally you'd have to go to that specific podcast, listen to the entirety of it just to get that bit that you want or listen to or you're interested in. So I would say, even from a content creator perspective, someone like Lex Friedman could say, you know what, I did a 5-minute segment on the Ukraine crisis, and then we spoke about something that happened here in the United States, right? Of course, he's not going to create an episode that's named Ukraine crisis plus this, plus this, plus this. You can actually break it down into smaller clips that cover certain topics. And I think that will also attract a lot of people. So if I want to listen to content creators that specifically are talking about a certain subject, I'm going to be able to search for that subject and find all the content creators that are talking about it. And then on top of it, that's a great way to actually discover the content creator, because it could be something that you like, something that you want to hear more of. And so it just organically brings reach into the picture for a lot of people and gets them to understand who should I follow, right? Via audio content, and not having to just literally sit in front of a screen.
Yeah, I think search is so important because, again, all the platforms have all the RSS feed open content, but there's 4 million podcasts. And so creating a searchable, indexable database that actually makes sense, and that when you search something, you get something you care about, it's hard to do when you don't have proprietary data. And the only way you have proprietary data is if the creator uploads to the platform, which ironically gives the creator more reach versus like sourcing it from these third-party feeds. I want to talk about YouTube and competition in general. It's going to be a big behemoth going up against the big dogs, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, big tech companies. I'm 24 years old, relatively unexperienced in the entire world of business, haven't really built a big business before. What are your thoughts on like the startup and the ability we have to actually compete against the big guys? And how do you feel about big tech versus a very small company?
I would say that if you're trying to do the same thing as YouTube, you're going to fail miserably because they've been doing it for such a long period of time. The question is, where are the gaps that YouTube is not filling right now, or it doesn't make sense for them to fill currently, right? They're going to be targeting large, broader markets that are completely insulated from other things that they're looking to do. So from a competitor standpoint, what you can do is fill in a more niche area and then kind of capitalize on that and then get growth from there. And then it's something that in the future, if Google does want to go into the space, they can actively compete. But by that time, you've already gotten yourself to a position where you've got loyalty from customers. And that customer loyalty, that content creator loyalty, it's something that's going to be able to preserve the value of the company and the startup. So I think right now, while the big dogs are asleep at the wheel, it's a great time to come in, create a platform that a lot of people are looking to get into, and then after that, capitalize on it. And then in the future, it could be something that becomes an acquisition target, or it could be something that someone wants to partner with to actually provide value to a larger platform, right? So if you're talking about audio only content discovery, that could be something that in the future, Google could say, instead of, hey, I want to build my own platform, I could just buy a company that's already doing it with a substantial following. I think customer acquisition costs are like the biggest draw for a lot of big companies. They don't necessarily want to go that route. They want to focus in on their key product, their core product, and just stay there. So I think this area right now is ripe for some I won't say competition, but some gap filling, and actually could end up materializing into a very profitable company that could actually go very far. Just depends on how willing you are and how committed you are to getting content creators on the platform. I think the key measure of success for AUDEA is going to be the number of content creators that eventually get on the platform. I think the best way to do that is by networking, which you've been clearly doing via YouTube and some of the people that you've gotten to actually invest in it, and then go from there. Get them to be able, especially with their huge followings, get them to do the promotion. And so this way you'll be able to capitalize on that and that experience. And then eventually, it could be something that naturally, organically grows. As more people start to use it, it almost creates a flywheel effect. And that flywheel helps you grow further into the content delivery market.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've noticed over the past couple of years is like everyone wants a little bit of the world's attention, whether we're talking about stocks or finance or makeup or whatever it is. And the big tech platforms are amazing, but they're really crowded. Like it's really hard to just like get them to show your content. And by the time they show a little bit of it, that content's dead and you got to make the next tweet or the next video. And it leads to burnout at the end. If this is not your full time, it's really hard to keep it going. So the new platforms that emerge, if they figure out marketing, which could be networking, organic growth, virality, content marketing, whatever, if they figure out how to get the world to care, there's a lot of the world that cares. It's like if you figure out how to make bread, a lot of people want to eat it. If you figure out a new way for people to upload content and get discovered in distribution that aren't currently getting it, like the New York Knicks podcast on Amazon that's going nowhere, that now is getting 25 people every single other day that are discovering the New York Knicks podcast, that matters. And those people are going to come back. They're going to be loyal. They're not going to leave just because a competitor comes, because that's where they are. That's going on with TikTok and YouTube Shorts. And I think that's where you develop a moat at the end of the day.
Here's one suggestion. Why not call it an audio cast instead of a podcast? I think too many people are using the term podcast, and it's very, it originates from the Apple podcast ecosystem. Yeah. But if you're trying to distinguish yourself, you call it an audio cast, which is
that's why we called it an AUDEA. Because to me, I was like, it's an audio idea, short, sweet name, simple.
Yeah. So listen to the next audio cast by Amit Kukreja.
Okay. Last couple questions. The betting on me. What was the reason that you decided that I'll take a chance on Amit? Startups are likely to fail. What was sort of the reason? Like maybe he has a chance to pull it off.
The guy barely sleeps. Like he's always creating.
I have two podcasts after this, by the way.
my entire YouTube feed is littered with his content. So I figured if someone's willing to work that hard in front of a camera and just talk, and they're willing to put in the time and the effort to do all the content creation, that just bodes well to someone who's going to be willing to work hard to actually to get this product off the ground. And also, I see the level of networking that you've been able to do in a very short period of time with some really big content creators, and that's actually that presence is growing, right? So you're getting the ability to actually connect with larger content creators who have substantial followings that could end up being a boost for your startup. In which case, I think you're doing well, and I wanted to invest in that. So I think currently the product itself, I tried it, I like it. There isn't enough content on there for me to say that it's something that I use on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But if there were more content creators on there publishing their information, it could be my next default vehicle for content consumption.
Right.
And that's what I'm betting on, and I'm betting on the driver of that content consumption vehicle to be you. So good luck.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. It's a really interesting time. I think the thing about not sleeping, what we've done with the money that we've raised so far, about 200K, is we said, instead of blowing it on Facebook and Google ads that are probably just too expensive and probably not going to work because we don't have the data, let's hire a team of videographers and scale my presence. Sort of like a Gary Vaynerchuk type of model of content distribution. And if people fall in love with the story and the method and the philosophy of what we're building, and then there's the tech that's actually getting better and better and better, the algorithms are getting smarter and smarter and smarter, then there's a chance, this gets really exponential. Because in terms of the content production, I mean, we're putting out a couple videos a day on YouTube. It's going to be about 100 pieces of content a day after July 27th, when we launch, scaled across all platforms. And I think if we do that effectively, I'm not saying we win, but one of the things about content platforms is they just want more. And the thing is, so many other people are inconsistent, which means there's gap in the inventories of the home feeds for more people to show up. And if you just keep posting more, you show up at the end of the day, and then you get more distribution and people care about what you built. And then you can effectively share a message in front of them, people will try out what you built and try out that product. And then it's a question of if the product is good. So it's an exciting time to create a lot of content and not sleep and try to get the world to care.
Yeah.
Last question for you is a question I've been asking all the investors as I've been doing this podcast series. What is your advice for me over the next 5 to 10 years on building the startup?
I would say the first thing is be disciplined with capital, because there are very few opportunities where people will believe in you, especially this early on. And if you end up blowing through your capital too quickly, a lot of people are gonna lose that faith and lose that trust, and you just become another startup founder that went broke.
Yeah.
And so right now is a good time when you're young to do all your learning, but also keep in mind and learn from all the other people out there that are willing to give you some good advice, especially people that we know that have significant investor mindsets. They'll happily give you some really good advice on how to be capital conscious. I think capital consciousness is probably the main thing that I would give you advice on, and also just to keep up the drive and the energy. I think eventually you'll get to the point where there will be a cliff that you'll be able to kind of just exponentially grow from. It just depends on that inflection point when it's going to be there. So good luck. That's all I can say, man. I think you've got all the makings of a good founder. And eventually I think you could probably bring AUDEA into a more mainstream what's that word? Mainstream presence. Yeah.
I appreciate it, Kris. Your money means a lot to me. Your belief means a lot to me. I mean, you're subsidizing my ability to go chase this dream at a young age. So I can't express how much it really means to me. This is what I've wanted to do my whole life. And someone is actually believing enough in me to give me thousands of dollars to actually be able to go chase that dream. So it means the world to me. And hopefully over the next 5-10 years, I can get you a return after trying to make this a mainstream thing. So I appreciate it, man.
Yep. No problem, man. Good luck.